guys? It's your boy Luke here for our Masters matchup preview, betting preview, going one-on-one or group by group here for the Masters to give you guys an idea of some of the matchups I'll be targeting. Earlier in the week, we did our betting preview where we went through our outrights, top 20 numbers, a few other props for Tiger Woods that I liked, but obviously it was too early in the week here for matchups. We had to wait for tee times to drop here on Tuesday, so I'm going to go ahead and hop right on into it. This is by far the biggest volume that I have in betting week to week because matchups are just the most consistent way to make money when you're betting on the PGA Tour. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop right on into it. We're going to go group by group, threesome by threesome, the entire way through the field to give you guys an idea of some of the guys I'm targeting. All right, the matchup board is on the screen, and of course this is Odds Checker, which is a great resource to check for outrights and for matchups. We're going to go group by group, giving some of my favorite picks here out of the groups. Now, not every single pick I give is going to be something I actually add to my card this week. I usually have right around 8 to 10 guys by the end Thursday morning, that kind of thing. So make sure to just keep that in mind. Pick the ones that you think are the best out of here, and the ones that I'll call my core picks, the ones that I'll definitely be adding to my card, I'll definitely make sure to go ahead and let you know that. So first group here isn't really something I'm looking to add to my cards. It's, Patrick Harrington, who's a long time champion here on tour. He hasn't won here at the Masters, but somebody who has a ton of experience in majors. Austin Greaser is a amateur, so on the opposite end of that spectrum, somebody with pretty much no experience at all professionally. And then Mike Weir, champion at the Masters. So just a weak group overall. Patrick Harrington is definitely the deserving favorite there. So if I was going to place some bet on anybody, it would be Harrington, but I just would rather that be plus money. You're going to see there's later on quite a few guys that I like that are in the plus 120, plus 150 range and have very similar odds to win their group, at least per the metrics that I'm running. So he's the favorite there in group one, but not something I'm betting. Group number two, it's a little bit more intriguing to bet just because all the guys are at the plus money, and there's really two guys you can make a case for here. Of course, those are Molinari and Straka. Larry Mize, Masters champion, not going to be somebody to consider here. I mean, he's going to probably shoot 2-3 over par every single day. Not going to make the cut. Molinari has done some special things, particularly in the year that Tiger Woods ended up winning in 2019. Sepp Straka, though, coming in with some really good ball striking for him. If I was going to take a bet on anyone, though, it would be Molinari, just because you're getting a little bit more juice there. A plus 125 versus plus 100. But much like the first group, not really something that I'm actively looking to add to any of my betting cards this week. Same thing with the next group here. Fred Cuddles shouldn't be plus 260. He should definitely be closer to maybe plus 400 or plus 450. Guido probably should be higher as well. He's really been in some dreadful form if you take a look at the European Tour. And Garrick Higo, even though he's also been in some really dreadful form, is the rightful favorite at plus 125, but the issue here is the number. It should probably be close to 150. I mean, he's just such a volatile golfer. This is just a really hard group to pick overall, and I would say it's Higo or pass there, and just, again, not something that I'm really too attracted to. Ryan Palmer, KH Lee, and Vijay Singh are in this next group. You can see Vijay Singh's at about plus 450, where Fred Couples probably should be in his group as well. Of course, very similar situations between those two players. I'm going to go ahead and back that up. Didn't mean to do that there. But overall in that group, I like the other two guys a little bit more. They're actually a little bit more interesting. Ryan Palmer and KH Lee. Most notably KH Lee, who's very solid with the ball striking. He's going to keep himself in play, and I know he doesn't have the experience here at this golf course, but Ryan Palmer, even though he's played here more often, also hasn't found all that much success. Outside of a few performances where he's ended up cracking the top 25, nothing to really write home about. So I do think he's the deserving favorite here, but the value that you're getting on KH Lee at plus 150, or I would imagine if you wait a day or so, you might be able to get him at a true plus 150 number there, would be something that I'm firing on. So I'm going to keep an eye on the KH Lee number, hoping that it drifts a little bit, maybe towards Ryan Palmer a little bit. Some of the more casual bettors will see somebody like Ryan Palmer in the group that's a little bit more of a recognizable name, click on his name a little bit more often, sway the odds in our favor there, but we'll have to see. Moving on to the next group, we have Cameron Young, Minwoo Lee, and Hudson Swafford. Of course, Cameron Young, up-and-coming stud on the PGA Tour. Kid has been ball striking the absolute living heck out of it over the last month. Minwoo Lee, who's looked a lot better on the European Tour. His starts here in the PGA Tour haven't been all that good. And then Hudson Swafford is the ultimate wild card. In this group, I get why Cameron Young's the favorite. I just think it's a little bit of a hype train there. A lot of people backing up those recent shots gained performances. Minwoo Lee probably should be a little bit lower than plus 210, and same thing with Hudson Swafford. So I wouldn't mind taking a shot on either of those players. I don't really have a lean one way or the other as of right now, so it's not something that I'm actively looking to add to my card. But in this group, it would be underdog or pass, really. I'd be taking a look at Lee or Swafford. Probably Swafford a little bit more than Lee, just because the recent form has definitely favored Swafford over Lee. But Swafford also hasn't been a cornerstone of recent form either. He's certainly been a little bit volatile, but in a matchup, right, when you have to be the best out of three, you kind of want him to have that positive volatility, right? He's either going to finish first in this group or dead last. I don't see him finishing in second. So perhaps that is something to take a look at right there. Next group, we have Brian Harman, Stuart Sink, and Harry Higgs. In this group, by far, I like Stuart Sink the most. I talked about him in my value picks video. He has a ton of experience around this track now. Of course, over the last 5 years, he's only played here twice. Last year had a pretty solid finish, so hopefully he can build on that. But back in the day, had a top 3 finish, a few other top 10 finishes. His game is perfect for the golf course, relatively long off the tee, very solid approach player. Not the best putter, but really solid around the green. You know, he has that creativity to him. He's able to shape shots in pretty much any direction. And at plus 180, I do think you're getting enough value. So that's very likely to be something I add to my card come tomorrow morning. The next group here is Siwoo Kim, Zach Johnson, and Aaron Jarvis. Jarvis being an amateur, obviously Zach Johnson, a past champion at the Masters, but a much more live past champion than most, right? Of course, last week at the Valero Texas Open, finished in the top 15, has a decent course fit here, especially because he's so good with the short game, pretty solid with the irons, no matter the distance. You know, long irons, one of the best in terms of his dispersion, which is a little bit surprising for a shorter hitter, but they got Siwoo Kim at minus 115 to me, and that's a little bit too low of a number, right? He should probably be even money to win this group. You might have Zach Johnson a little bit closer, maybe plus 140, plus 130. I don't know if it's enough to bet Zach Johnson, so it's probably a group that I'm going to be avoiding, but I do think that Siwoo Kim's being esteemed a little bit too much there, that's for sure. So that's something to keep an eye out for DFS. Maybe he's going to be a little bit higher owned than we expect because, of course, the betting market is certainly favoring towards somebody like Siwoo, and a lot of times that's indicative of the public sentiment on a player. Next up, we have Luke List, Mackenzie Hughes, and Matthew Wolff. And Wolff has never been good around this track, and I get it, right? The driving accuracy causes Wolff issues because he does miss 30 to 40 yards offline, and you have some room out here at Augusta National, but if you're missing 30 or 40 yards offline, it's going to cause you some issues. Mackenzie Hughes at plus 195 is the number that I'm really looking at. He's solid under difficult conditions. We've seen him show up at the US Open before, a few other major championships, and even though Luke List is coming in with decent form, he struggles whenever you have to putt, right? When he's one of the worst putters on tour, particularly on bent grass. So if I'm looking for a more consistent play, which is exactly what we're looking for here for a matchup, I'm going to be going with Mackenzie Hughes, particularly because he's almost plus 200, right? Depends where you're getting that line at. Matthew Wolff should probably be at least plus 350, so not really somebody that I'm considering as a long shot. Next up, we have Taylor Gooch, Jason Kochrack, and Danny Willett. I think the value across the board is solid just in terms of the actual expected value of just betting this group across the board. Of course, if you did that, you would lose money, but I definitely have my eye on Taylor Gooch. I think that he's a very solid play right here. He should probably be closer to plus 120. Misspoke there. Obviously not minus money because Jason Kochrack's also a formidable foe, but Danny Willett probably should be closer to plus 300. His recent form, especially when he's been over on the PGA Tour, hasn't looked all that good. He had the win on the European Tour. He's looked really solid over there. So, I mean, on the European Tour, got to give him at least a little bit of credit, but at least what we've seen on the American side, it would certainly favor Gooch and Kochrack. And between Gooch and Kochrack, I think that Gooch has a little bit better of a course fit. He's long off the tee, same thing with Jason Kochrack, so that's a feather in both of their caps, but Gooch a little bit sharper with the approach play, both very solid around the green players, and their putting almost identical. So if we're going to have to split hairs between the two, I would definitely side towards Taylor Gooch, but you can see that's reflected with the odds, right? One's plus 160, one's plus 162, pretty much as close as I have them in my evaluation, but Taylor Gooch is the one that I'll be going with, and that's actually something that I'm definitely adding to my card. Next up, we have Shane Lowery, Max Homa, and Kevin Gnaw. Kevin Gnaw is the value play here and what I'm going with. I love Max Homa this week. I like his chances to actually win this event, but when we're just taking a look at a matchup, especially just a 3-ball here where we're looking to go out there and have the median performance, right? Who just wins out of these 3 players, not out of the entire 91 player field. Kevin Na plus 250 is the guy I'm looking at. He's got the approach play we're looking for, around the green play, the putting as well. And off the tee, he can get away with it at Augusta National, particularly if it doesn't play extremely wet. If some of this weather ends up missing Augusta, if they end up turning on the sub-airs, really taking a lot of the moisture out of this golf course, that plays directly into Kevin Na's advantage. So we'll have to see how the course looks. We'll get a little bit more information tomorrow on Wednesday. As we hear how the course has taken some of that weather, whether a lot of the rain is standing on the golf course or whether it's dried up already, that'll give us a good idea whether Kevin Na is a live play. If it's not, if we're taking it to be a relatively wet Masters, then Max Homa would be the play. So I'm not sure if I'm going to add it to my card. It depends on the conditions there. But Max Homa and Kevin Na are who I have my eye on in that group. Next up, we have Daniel Berger, Tommy Fleetwood, and Kevin Kisner, and this is a really hard one to decide. I mean, it's definitely going to be one I stay away from because of all three players have a really solid chance to win, and I think that the odds are reflective of that. Daniel Berger, of course, I talked about him during my sleeper picks video this week. He's somebody that I think has a sneaky good course fit, even though the course results haven't necessarily reflected that. Tommy Fleetwood coming in with much better recent form than we've seen over the last few years. And of course, Kevin Kisner almost won at the Players' Championship. So I like him there at plus 230. Just hard to decide there. So not something I'm going to be investing in. Cameron Smith, Paul Casey, and Bryson. Bryson just immediately X'd off. And of course, then you have Paul Casey versus Cameron Smith. I like Cameron Smith there pretty much 100% of the time, so that's definitely the bet for me. Probably something I'm adding to my card as well, particularly because Paul Casey's dealing with some injury concerns. I don't know how much he's been able to practice over the last few weeks. If you remember at the WGC, he did have to concede all 3 matches, so that's definitely concerning to me. Next up, we have Louis, Joaquin, and Tiger Woods. Unfortunately, cross off Tiger Woods. I don't see him shooting like 3 or 4 under par, and Louis Oosthuizen or Joaquin Niemann, one of them's taking it low. So I would definitely side towards Louis just because he's used to being in a group with Tiger Woods a little bit more. He's done so before. He's also been in some high-profile groups, whereas Joaquin Niemann might be a little bit more susceptible to some of that noise. Next up, we have Justin Thomas, Hideki, and James Pio. James Pio is a amateur. He's a really solid amateur, but of course he's in a group with JT and Hideki. Hideki's dealing with the neck issue. It's also a lower back issue. You could see him on live from the Masters really look a little bit discomforted. He was grabbing the neck a few times, so not somebody I'm looking to play here. Would definitely be JT, just it's minus 138. That's a pretty brutal number there. Next up, we have Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, and Adam Scott. This is certainly Adam Scott for me. Just elite course history, coming in with some sneaky good form. The number on Scheffler is fair at plus 125, but I like the value we're getting there at almost 2.2 to 1 odds. Next, we have Eric Van Rooyen, Cameron Champ, and also Lucas Glover. This is a tough one, right? Really, you're looking at the value there in Champ and Glover, and you're thinking those are pretty solid numbers, but I just wish they were a little bit higher. I wish they were both like, maybe plus 250, plus 300 respectively. And Eric Van Rooyen at plus 150, I don't think that's a good enough number to bet him either. So that's going to be a stay away group for me. Not really something I want to decide between. The next group is clearly Cameron Davis as the value pick. That's between Bazane, Davis, and Langer. Langer can pretty much cross across the board. He's going to put up a consistent performance, 1-2 under every single day. I do see Bazane or Davis taking it low. Somebody shooting 3-4 under par over their first 2 days. I like both as sleeper picks for DFS as well. But I'm going to side towards Davis just because of the number. He's plus 165. Probably a group that I'm staying away from in terms of my main card, what I actually end up betting on. But if you're looking to bet every single group or something like that, that's the guy that I would take. The next group, we have Robert McIntyre, Charles Schwartzel, and Laird Shepherd. Shepherd completely eliminated from the board for me. It's between Schwartzel and McIntyre, but McIntyre shouldn't be minus money, right? Schwartzel's won this event before. I know the recent form hasn't been all that good, but Augusta National has been a place where people could turn it around in a hurry. We've seen that year after year, so I'm going to be taking Charles at nearly 2 to 1 odds. He's there at plus 175. The next group is Gary Woodland, Justin Rose, and Takumi Kanaya. Woodland and Rose are even in odds there at plus 150, whereas I think Woodland should be the clear favorite. He's been striping the ball of late. On DraftKings, I think he's going to be a popular play, but I think that's well warranted. Just a good course fit. He can get away with being a little bit inaccurate off the tee. He's been a really solid putter of late. Just really no question marks for once. The health really looks like he's 100%, and definitely think that's what's fueling his late run of play. Next group is Corey Connors, Russell Henley, and Lee Westwood. Westwood's not somebody I'm actively looking to bet. The recent form hasn't really given us any sorts of hope. Then you have Russell Henley and Corey Connors, two people that are going to be extremely chalky this week. I don't like playing either one in DFS, but if I had to choose between them in a matchup format, would certainly be Russell Henley just because of the putting. He's going to be a little bit more consistent there, and in this matchup format, I just think that's a little bit more plus EV in the long run. Next group, we have Patrick Reed, Seamus Power, and Lucas Herbert. Herbert is probably a solid look at value there. I don't think Patrick Reed should be the favorite. Seamus Power, probably also a source of value, so I'd really be choosing between those two, but also a stay away group for me, not something that I'm actively betting. Kita Nakajima, plus 330 is not enough to pay for him. We should be in the plus 500 or maybe even plus 750 range. That leaves us with Watson and Hoagie, who, because Nakajima's number isn't high enough, I do think that you are getting a little bit of inherent value there, so that's why I don't want to just stay away from this group, but I would be taking Tom Hoagie. Even with all the experience and, of course, course history that Bubba Watson has going around Augusta National, Tom Hoagie's just been playing some beautiful golf, particularly with the approach play, which is by far the most important thing around Augusta. Next group is Sanjay, Mark Leishman, and Webb Simpson. If I had to take a favorite out of this, it would be Sanjay. He's finished second here before. He's got the approach play. He's really well-rounded. He gains in all four major statistical categories, so he's got that going for him. I also like Mark Leishman, though, so hard to decide between the two, and frankly, I even like Webb Simpson this week, so it's kind of a group of death, so that's why it's not going to be a main prop that I add to my card. And really, you can make a solid argument for all three players. It's why it's going to be something I stay away from. The next group is Sergio, Thomas Peters, and Harold Varner III. Sergio, of course, a past champion here, but Thomas Peters is finished in the top 5. Also, a very solid course fit if you just take a look at his pure shots gained metrics. And then you have HV3, who is in some sneaky good form. He's had some solid performances. Of course, the win over there in the Middle East. This is also a hard group to decide between, but it's Thomas Peters for me. I think that the top 5 in the past, just the good course fit, especially by the metrics. I'm a numbers guy, guys. I'm going to adhere to them as much as humanly possible. That's who they're telling me to pick, and that's who I'm going with there at right around plus 190 odds. The next group is Sam Burns, Terrell Hatton, and Abraham Answer's dealing with some injury concerns. We don't even know what it is. He hasn't even told us yet, or at least I haven't looked enough into it to know what it is. Then you have Sam Burns and Terrell Hatton. To me, it's Sam Burns. Just the kid's a stud. The last time he played, he won a golf tournament. He's got the approach play we're looking for. The off-the-tee play, he's an absolute bomber, so of course gets that type of bonus. And the putter is a huge bright spot for him. So as long as he keeps himself out of trouble, really somebody I think has a solid week there. The next group is a group of death. It's DJ, Colin, Morikawa, and Hershel, but the play is Morikawa for me at plus 160. I just like his consistency with the approach play, and the putter has started to become a bright spot for him. So if he can bring that stuff like he usually does with the ball striking, and then of course putt like he has over the last 24 measured rounds, I expect him to get out of that group as a winner. The next group is John Rahm, Cantlay, and Zalatoris. For me, that's easily John Rahm at plus 130, just very consistent. Also a much better short game player than the other two. The next group is Hovland, Xander Schauffele, and Jordan Spieth. Now, this is going to be a group that a lot of people look to bet, but I'm not really sure it's one that you should, just because, of course, all three players are more than capable of winning. You have Jordan Spieth, Xander, that are very similar players, very well-rounded players. If I was going to pick somebody, though, it would be Xander Schauffele. So it's something I might add to my card just because, it's one of those marquee groups that's going to be on TV. You're going to be able to sweat that for the first 2 rounds. So might add Xander Schauffele, but in terms of being plus or minus EV, might not be the best one to take a look at there. And the last group we have, teeing off at 3:03 p.m. is Rory McIlroy, Brooks Koepka, and Matthew Fitzpatrick. And to me, it's extremely straightforward. It's Brooks Koepka 100% of the time. Just in major championships, this guy delivers. He's going to finish in the top 10. He's very consistent here at major championships, if not cracking that top end upside and actually winning the event. So that's my favorite prop on the board. I guarantee you I take Brooks Koepka in this 3-ball and add it to my card by the end of the week, especially there at plus 175. I think that's more than enough juice there. It's certainly a bet that plays plus EV in the long term. About for the matchups preview, before we go on to get out of here, go ahead and let me know what your favorite matchup bet is for this week, whether it's something that agrees with what I'm taking or completely against what I'm taking. Would love to hear from you guys. Always love to hear your opinions down below. And as always, make sure to look out for our DFS live stream tomorrow night. That'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern time, Wednesday night, talking the weather, some DFS strategy, my projections, player pool, ownership, your live questions. pretty much everything you guys need to know here for this week in terms of fantasy golf. So gonna cover that for you guys. Make sure to check that out tomorrow night. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That way you don't miss any of that content to come. Also, smash the like button before you get out of here. I appreciate you guys once again. See you guys next time, and best of luck with all of your bets for this week.